If you're over 60 and you've been told that real strength training requires heavy weights, a gym membership, and complicated machines, I need you to hear this. That's not just wrong. It's potentially dangerous advice that's keeping millions of older adults weaker than they need to be. Right now, across Japan, people in their 70s and 80s are building lean muscle, reversing age-related leg weakness, and moving with a confidence that most Westerners half their age can't match. And they're doing it at home. No equipment, no gym. No risk of the injuries that send so many older adults to the emergency room every single year. Here's what the fitness industry doesn't want you to know. The loss of leg strength after 60 isn't inevitable. It's a choice. And for decades, we've been making the wrong one. We've been sold the idea that strength requires resistance, that muscle needs metal, that progress means adding weight. But in Japan, they've understood something profoundly different for generations. The most effective strength training for aging bodies isn't about how much weight you can lift. It's about how well you can control your own body through space. And the 3 movements I'm going to share with you today have been quietly transforming the lives of older adults for decades, building strength that translates directly into the activities that actually matter. Walking without fear. Standing from a chair without using your hands. Climbing stairs without gripping the railing like your life depends on it. Before we go further, do me a favor. Drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from and your age. I want to know who's in this community. Because what I'm about to share isn't theory. It's a practical system that works regardless of where you're starting from. Whether you're still active or you've lost significant strength. Whether you have joint pain or you move freely. Whether you've exercised your whole life or you're starting from scratch at 70. Now, I'm going to reveal 3 movements. But here's the structure you need to understand. Movement number 3 is simple and it's going to feel almost too easy when you start. That's exactly the point. Movement number 2 is where most people feel the real challenge, and it's the one that addresses the single biggest cause of falls in older adults. But movement number 1, the first one I'm going to explain, is the most transformative. It's the movement that research from institutions studying Japanese longevity has linked to independent living well into your 90s. It's the movement that physical therapists now recommend before hip replacement surgery because it can sometimes make the surgery unnecessary. And it's the movement that, when done correctly for just 90 seconds a day, can reverse years of muscle loss in your legs in a matter of weeks. Let me be direct about something. The average American over 60 loses roughly 3 to 8% of their muscle mass every decade. That number accelerates after 70. By 80, many people have lost 30 to 40% of the muscle they had at 50. And here's the part that should terrify you. Most of that loss happens in your legs. Your quadriceps, the big muscles on the front of your thighs, can shrink by as much as 50% between age 50 and 80. Your calves, your glutes, the stabilizing muscles around your hips, they all follow the same pattern. This isn't natural aging. This is disuse. And the reason it matters so much is that leg strength is the single best predictor of how long you'll live independently. Better than heart health. Better than blood pressure. Better than cholesterol numbers. Leg strength predicts whether you'll still be walking at 85 or sitting in a wheelchair. Whether you'll be traveling and gardening and playing with grandchildren, or whether you'll be trapped in your home, afraid of every curb and every step. But here's what gives me hope. Muscle is different from almost every other tissue in your body. Your brain cells don't regenerate. Your heart tissue doesn't bounce back after damage. But muscle, even at 80, even at 90, will respond to the right stimulus. Will grow, will strengthen, will rebuild. The question isn't whether your body can still change. The question is whether you're giving it the right signal. And that brings me to movement number 1, the most important exercise you're not doing. In Japan, they call it the isometric wall sit, but that translation misses something. The original concept is closer to still strength training. The idea that holding a position, sustaining tension without movement, builds a different kind of power than lifting and lowering weights. And for aging legs, it might be the single most effective tool we have. Here's why this matters. When you lift a weight at the gym, you're strong for a moment, at the top of the movement or the bottom. But most real-world leg strength isn't about peaks. It's about sustained control. Standing from a low chair requires you to hold your body in a half-squat position while your muscles generate force to push you upward. Walking downhill or downstairs requires your quadriceps to control your descent for minutes at a time, absorbing impact with every step. These aren't explosive movements. They're sustained, controlled, isometric contractions. And if you train only with traditional reps and sets, you're missing the exact type of strength that prevents falls and maintains independence. Research from centers studying movement in older adults has shown that isometric training produces strength gains comparable to traditional weight training, but with significantly lower injury risk. Some analyses suggest that older adults who include isometric holds in their routine show improvements in muscle thickness and force production that match or exceed what's seen with conventional resistance training. And here's the piece that matters most. The strength you build with isometric training transfers directly to balance and stability, because you're teaching your muscles to sustain tension, to hold you steady, to control your position in space. Exactly what you need when you step off a curb or catch yourself from a stumble. Let me tell you about Margaret. 72. Retired teacher. Loved hiking, but had stopped 2 years before I met her because her knees couldn't handle the downhill sections. She'd tried physical therapy, tried knee braces, tried glucosamine, and every supplement the health food store recommended. Nothing worked. When I explained the wall sit, she was skeptical. She'd seen people do them at the gym years ago and assumed they were for athletes. But I walked her through the protocol, and she agreed to try it for 2 weeks. Here's exactly what she did. Every morning after breakfast, she stood with her back against a wall, feet about 2 feet away from the wall and shoulder-width apart. She slid down the wall until her thighs were roughly parallel to the floor, like she was sitting in an invisible chair. Knees directly over her ankles, not forward over her toes. Back flat against the wall, arms relaxed or crossed over her chest. And then she held that position for as long as she could. The first day, she made it 12 seconds before her legs started shaking and she had to stand up. That's normal. That's expected. The mistake most people make is thinking 12 seconds means they're too weak to benefit. 12 seconds means the exercise is working exactly as it should. Every day, she added 2 seconds. By day 4, she was at 20 seconds. By the end of week 1, she was holding for 35 seconds. By the end of week 2, she hit 60 seconds. And something changed. She noticed it first when she stood up from her couch. Normally, she'd push off the armrest. This time, she didn't need to. Her legs just lifted her. A few days later, she walked down a hill to her mailbox without that familiar ache in her knees. 2 weeks after that, she went on a short hike with her daughter. 45 minutes, moderate terrain, including downhill sections. No pain, no fear, no stopping to rest. That's the power of this movement. And here's how you start. Find a wall with nothing hanging on it that could fall. Remove your shoes so you can feel your foot position clearly. Stand with your back against the wall and walk your feet out about 2 feet. Slide down the wall slowly until your thighs are as close to parallel with the floor as you can manage. If parallel is too difficult, stop higher. Even a quarter squat will work. The angle matters less than the sustained hold. Check that your knees are directly over your ankles, not jutting forward. If they're too far forward, walk your feet out another few inches. Now hold, breathe normally. Don't clench your jaw or hold your breath. Just let your legs do the work. When they start to shake, that's the signal that your muscles are fatiguing, which is exactly what we want. When you can't hold the position any longer, stand up slowly and walk around for a minute to let the blood flow back into your legs. Start with whatever time you can manage. 10 seconds, 15, 20. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you do it every single day and that you add a little time each session. Your goal is to build up to 90 seconds. Once you hit 90 seconds, you have 2 options. You can hold that time and just maintain, which will preserve the strength you've built. Or you can increase difficulty by sliding down another inch or 2, bringing your thighs closer to parallel, which will restart the progression and build even more strength. Do this once a day. Morning is ideal because it primes your nervous system and your muscles for the day ahead. But if evening works better for your schedule, that's fine too. Consistency beats timing. And here's the safety piece. If you have knee pain during the hold, you're going too low. Come up a few inches and find a position that challenges your muscles without stressing your joints. If you feel dizzy or lightheaded, stand up immediately. That's usually a blood pressure response and it resolves with movement. And if you have any history of blood clots or deep vein thrombosis, talk to your doctor before starting isometric holds, because the sustained contraction can temporarily reduce blood flow. Now, here's the kicker. The wall sit builds raw strength in your quadriceps and glutes, but it doesn't address the one thing that causes more falls than weak legs. And that's where movement number 2 comes in. This one surprises people because it looks almost comically simple, but it targets a deficit that nearly every older adult has, whether they realize it or not. Weak ankles. Think about the last time you stumbled. Maybe you stepped off a curb and your foot rolled slightly. Maybe you walked across uneven ground and your ankle wobbled. What saved you from falling wasn't your thigh muscles or your core. It was the dozens of small stabilizing muscles around your ankle that fired instantly to correct your position and keep you upright. These muscles, the peroneals, the tibialis anterior, the deep muscles of your feet, they act like shock absorbers and gyroscopes. They adjust your foot position hundreds of times a minute while you walk, keeping you balanced on terrain that's never perfectly flat. But here's the problem. Modern life has made these muscles lazy. We walk on flat, even surfaces. Sidewalks, floors, pavement. We wear cushioned, supportive shoes that do half the stabilizing work for us. And over decades, the muscles that keep our ankles strong and reactive simply atrophy. Studies on balance in older adults consistently show that ankle strength and proprioception, your sense of where your foot is in space, decline faster than almost any other measure of physical function. And when those systems fail, you fall. Not because you're weak overall, but because your foundation, the connection between your foot and the ground, isn't stable. In Japan, balance training is woven into daily life starting in childhood. Children walk on balance beams in school. Older adults practice standing on one foot while waiting for the bus or brushing their teeth. The specific movement I'm about to teach you is a formalized version of something millions of Japanese people do unconsciously. And when Western researchers started studying why fall rates in Japan are significantly lower than in the United States, ankle stability kept showing up as a key factor. The movement is called single-leg balance, and the protocol is deceivingly simple. You stand on one foot. That's it. But the details matter. And the progressions, the way you make it harder over time, are what turn a basic balance drill into a powerful strength and stability exercise. Let me tell you about Robert, 68, former contractor. Had fallen twice in the previous year, once on a hiking trail and once in his own garage. Both times he'd stepped on something uneven, his ankle had rolled, and he'd gone down. No major injuries, but the fear was setting in. He'd started walking more cautiously, gripping railings, avoiding trails. When I taught him the single-leg balance, he couldn't hold it for more than 3 seconds on his right leg before his foot started wobbling and he had to put it down. His left leg was a little better, maybe 5 seconds, but still nowhere near functional. Here's what I had him do. Every morning and every evening, 2 sessions a day, he practiced standing on one leg. He started by standing next to a countertop with his fingertips lightly touching the surface. Just enough contact to help with balance, but not enough to support his weight. He lifted his right foot a few inches off the ground, bent at the knee, and held the position while looking straight ahead at a fixed point on the wall. He held for as long as he could, up to 30 seconds, then switched to the left leg. That was 1 set. He did 3 sets on each leg, twice a day. In the first few days, his ankles felt wobbly and his calves burned. That burning is the small stabilizing muscles working, often for the first time in years. By the end of the first week, he was consistently hitting 15 seconds per leg with light finger support. By the end of week 2, he didn't need to touch the counter anymore. He could stand on each leg for 25 seconds, no support, steady. By week 3, he hit 45 seconds per leg. And here's what he noticed. When he walked on gravel or uneven grass, his ankles didn't roll. When he stepped off a curb, his foot adjusted automatically without conscious thought. The stabilizing muscles had woken up. They were doing their job again. Here's your protocol. Stand next to a sturdy counter or table. Place your fingertips on the surface lightly. Lift your right foot off the ground, bending your knee so your foot is a few inches behind you. Don't lean to the side or twist your body. Keep your hips level and your shoulders square. Look at a fixed point on the wall in front of you. This is crucial. Your eyes help your brain stabilize your body. So if you're looking around or down at the floor, you're making balance much harder. Hold the position for as long as you can, up to 30 seconds. When you feel your ankle wobbling or your foot touches down, that's the end of the set. Switch legs. Do 3 sets on each leg. Rest for 30 to 60 seconds between sets. Do this twice a day, morning and evening. The twice-a-day frequency matters because balance is a neurological skill as much as a physical one. Your brain needs repeated practice to rewire the stabilizing reflexes. Once a day won't cut it. Twice a day, every day, is the minimum effective dose. Now, progressions. Once you can hold 30 seconds per leg with fingertip support, remove the support entirely. Just stand next to the counter in case you need to catch yourself, but don't touch it. Once you can hold 30 seconds per leg with no support, close your eyes. This is a massive jump in difficulty because you're removing visual input, forcing your ankles and your inner ear to do all the stabilizing work. You'll probably drop back down to 5 or 10 seconds when you first close your eyes. That's expected. Build back up. Once you can hold 30 seconds per leg with eyes closed, you've reached a level of ankle stability that most 60-year-olds will never achieve. And you've dramatically reduced your fall risk. Safety notes. Always practice near a stable surface you can grab if needed. Never practice balance on a slippery floor or in socks on hardwood. Bare feet or non-slip shoes only. If you have severe neuropathy or vertigo, talk to your doctor before starting balance exercises, because reduced sensation in your feet or inner ear dysfunction can make solo balance practice unsafe. Here's what most people don't realize. The wall sit and the single leg balance complement each other perfectly. The wall sit builds the raw strength in your big leg muscles. The single leg balance builds the stability and control in your ankles and feet. Together, they give you strong legs that are also coordinated and reactive. That combination is what keeps you independent, but there's still one piece missing. And that's movement number 3, the simplest of all, the one that takes 30 seconds and requires no balance, no strength, and no risk. But it's the gateway. It's the movement that wakes up muscles you've forgotten you have. And for people who are starting from a place of significant weakness or fear, it's the entry point that makes everything else possible. Movement number 3 is called the ankle pump, though in Japanese rehabilitation centers it's often referred to as the circulation awakening. And here's why it matters. Blood flow to your legs is driven by 2 systems. Your heart pumps blood down to your feet through your arteries. But getting that blood back up to your heart, fighting gravity, requires help. That help comes from your calf muscles. Every time your calf contracts, it squeezes the veins in your lower leg, pushing blood upward through one-way valves. This is called the calf muscle pump. And it's so important that physiologists sometimes call your calves your second heart. But if you sit for hours every day, if you move less than you used to, if your calves have weakened from disuse, that pump slows down. Blood pools in your lower legs. Your feet swell. Your legs feel heavy and tired. And over time, the muscles themselves get less oxygen, less nutrients, and they weaken further. It's a vicious cycle. Weak calves lead to poor circulation. Poor circulation leads to weaker calves. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to break. The ankle pump breaks that cycle. It's a simple, rhythmic movement that contracts your calf muscles repeatedly, forcing blood to circulate, bringing oxygen and nutrients to the tissue, and waking up the neural pathways that control those muscles. And because it requires no standing, no balance, and almost no effort, it's safe for everyone, even people with severe arthritis. even people recovering from surgery, even people who haven't exercised in decades. Let me tell you about Dorothy, 79, widow, lived alone, had stopped walking more than a few minutes at a time because her legs felt so heavy and tired. Her doctor had checked for circulation problems and found nothing alarming, just age-related decline. When I met her, she was discouraged. She thought the heaviness was permanent. I taught her the ankle pump, and she started doing it 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. Within 3 days, she noticed her feet were less swollen at the end of the day. Within a week, her legs felt lighter when she walked. Within 2 weeks, she was walking to her mailbox and back without stopping to rest. A simple movement, practiced consistently, had reversed what she thought was inevitable decline. Here's how you do it. Sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Lift your toes and the ball of your foot off the ground, keeping your heels planted. You're flexing your ankle, pointing your toes toward your shin. Hold that position for 2 seconds. Then press your toes and the ball of your foot back down to the floor while lifting your heels off the ground, like you're pressing a gas pedal. Hold that position for 2 seconds. That's 1 rep. Do 20 reps. Your calves should feel warm and slightly fatigued by the end. Do this 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. You can do this while you're sitting at the kitchen table, while you're watching television, while you're reading. It takes 30 seconds. There's no reason not to do it. And here's the progression. Once 20 reps feels easy, increase to 30 reps per session. Once 30 reps feels easy, you can add light resistance by looping a resistance band around the ball of your foot, though most people find that simply increasing reps is sufficient. The goal isn't to exhaust your calves. The goal is to keep blood moving and to maintain the neural connection between your brain and those muscles. Now, here's what happens when you combine all 3 movements into a daily routine. You're building strength with the wall sit. You're building stability with the single leg balance, and you're maintaining circulation and neural activation with the ankle pump. The total time investment is about 5 to 7 minutes a day, and the return on that investment is independence, confidence, freedom from fear, the ability to walk, to travel, to move through the world without constantly calculating risk. But let me be very clear about something. These movements aren't magic. They won't fix a torn meniscus. They won't reverse severe osteoarthritis. They won't heal a fracture. If you have significant pain, if you've been told you need surgery, if you have a diagnosed condition that limits your mobility, these exercises are not a replacement for medical treatment. They're a complement. They're a way to build strength around an injury, to prepare for surgery, to maintain function after you've healed. But they're not a cure-all, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. That said, for the vast majority of older adults who are simply weaker than they used to be, who move less confidently, who feel the creep of age-related decline, these 3 movements can be transformative. Because the decline isn't inevitable, it's reversible. Your muscles are still capable of growth. Your nervous system is still capable of learning. Your body is still capable of change. You just need to give it the right signal. Here's the weekly structure I recommend. Every morning, do the ankle pump, the wall sit, and the single leg balance in that order. The ankle pump warms up your calves and gets blood flowing. The wall sit builds strength. The single leg balance builds stability. The sequence matters because you want your muscles warm and your nervous system alert before you challenge your balance. Then, every evening, do the ankle pump and the single leg balance again. You don't need to repeat the wall sit. Once a day is sufficient for strength building, but balance training benefits from twice-a-day practice. Track your progress. Write down how long you hold the wall sit each day. Write down how long you balance on each leg. Write down any changes you notice in how you feel, how you move, how confident you are on stairs or uneven ground. The numbers will motivate you. Seeing your wall sit time climb from 20 seconds to 60 seconds over a few weeks is incredibly reinforcing. And noticing that you no longer need to grip the railing when you walk downstairs is the real-world proof that the work is paying off. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. Why not just go to the gym? Why not lift weights, use machines, take a fitness class designed for seniors? And the answer is, if you enjoy that and it works for you, great. Keep doing it. But for millions of older adults, gyms are intimidating, expensive, inconvenient, or physically inaccessible. And the research is very clear that adherence, consistency, actually doing the exercise, is far more important than the type of exercise you choose. The best exercise program is the one you'll actually do. And for most people over 60, especially those who are starting from a place of weakness or fear, a simple home routine that takes 5 minutes a day and requires no equipment is infinitely more sustainable than a gym membership they'll use twice and then abandon. There's also the injury risk. Gyms are full of equipment designed for younger bodies. Equipment that requires you to load your spine, stress your joints, and move in ways that can be risky if your form isn't perfect. And let's be honest, most older adults don't have perfect form. Most older adults are figuring things out as they go. And in a gym environment without a skilled trainer watching every rep, the risk of injury is real. Home-based bodyweight exercises, especially isometric holds and balance drills, have a much better safety profile. You can't drop a weight on your foot. You can't throw out your back loading a barbell. You can stop instantly if something feels wrong. That margin of safety is valuable. But here's the deeper reason these Japanese-inspired movements work so well for aging bodies. They're built around principles that align with how your body actually functions in daily life. You're not training your legs to curl a weight or press a machine. You're training your legs to hold you steady, to lift you from a chair, to control your descent on stairs, to catch you when you stumble. That's functional strength. That's the strength that keeps you independent. And it doesn't require a gym. It requires intention, consistency, and a willingness to challenge yourself a little bit every day. Let me share one more story. Combined example this time, Harold and Jean, married 61 years, both in their early 80s. Harold had fallen twice in the previous 6 months. Jean had stopped walking more than a block because her legs felt too weak. They'd talked about moving to assisted living. When I met them, they were resigned. They thought this was just what happened when you got old. I spent 30 minutes teaching them the 3 movements. They started that day. Every morning, they stood side by side in their kitchen and did the routine together. Ankle pumps while they drank their coffee. Wall sits against the hallway wall. Single leg balance while holding on to the counter. They made it a ritual. 60 days later, Harold hadn't fallen again. Jean was walking to the neighborhood park about half a mile round trip. They'd canceled the assisted living consultation. They weren't interested anymore. That's what's possible. And it doesn't require youth. It doesn't require athletic ability. It doesn't require a previous fitness history. It requires a decision that you're not done yet, that your body still has capacity, that decline is not inevitable, and that 5 minutes a day, every day, is worth the return. Now, let me give you some practical troubleshooting. What if you try the wall sit and your knees hurt? First, check your form. Knees should be over your ankles, not forward over your toes. If they are and it still hurts, come up higher. Do a quarter squat instead of a half squat. Build strength at that angle first. Pain is a signal. Listen to it. What if you can't balance on one leg for even a second? Use 2-hand support on the counter instead of fingertip support. Build confidence first, then reduce support gradually. What if your calves cramp during the ankle pump? You're contracting too hard. Ease off the intensity. Flex and point more gently. Cramping usually resolves within a few days as your muscles adapt. What if you miss a day? Just start again the next day. Consistency matters more than perfection. One missed day won't erase your progress. A week of missed days will, so if you skip, don't spiral. Just get back to it. And what if you're not seeing progress as fast as you'd like? First, make sure you're actually challenging yourself. If the wall sit feels easy, go lower or hold longer. If balance feels easy, close your eyes. Your body adapts to stress, so you have to progressively increase the difficulty. Second, give it time. Real strength gains take weeks, not days. You didn't lose your leg strength overnight. You won't rebuild it overnight. Be patient. Trust the process. One more thing. These movements are the foundation. They're the minimum effective dose for maintaining and building leg strength at home. But they're not the ceiling. Once you've mastered them, once the wall sit feels manageable and your balance is solid and your calves are responsive, you can add more. You can add sit-to-stands, where you practice standing up from a chair and sitting back down without using your hands. You can add heel raises, where you lift up onto your toes while standing. You can add step-ups onto a low step or curb. The Japanese approach to movement in older age is progressive. You start where you are, you build a foundation, and then you layer on more challenge as your capacity grows. But you don't start with complexity. You start with simplicity. And these 3 movements are that simple, solid foundation. Let me end with a principle that guides everything I teach. Aging is not a disease. It's a process. And while you can't stop the process, you can absolutely influence the trajectory. The difference between an 85-year-old who's walking independently and an 85-year-old who's confined to a wheelchair usually isn't genetics. It's not luck, it's decades of small decisions. Decisions to move instead of sit, to challenge instead of coast, to build instead of decline. And those decisions don't require hours in the gym or expensive trainers or complicated programs. They require 5 minutes a day and the belief that your body still responds to effort. So here's my question for you. Which of these 3 movements are you going to start with today? And what's the one thing that's been holding you back from taking your leg strength seriously?